prosecutors under President Trump went after communications data of Trump's political opponents, including two prominent California congressmen.
One of those congressmen is Adam Schiff, and he joins us now live. Thank you so much, Congressman, for joining us. We really appreciate it. So let's start by explaining what the Department of Justice did here. Back in 2018, they subpoenaed Apple for data connected to you, as well as Congressman Eric Swalwell and some family members, one of them a minor. So we just found out about this. When did you find out, and what's your reaction?
Well, I found out last month that they had subpoenaed Apple for some of my records, some of my colleague Eric Swalwell's, but also numerous staff and many staff that frankly had nothing to do with the issues that they were looking at. And it appears that it was a very broad fishing expedition. And it certainly appears that Justice Department was once again being used to do the president's dirty work. This was something that the president had been badgering them publicly. He wanted them to go after me. He wanted them to go after other adversaries of his. And that's the kind of thing you do or see in a dictatorship, not in the United States of America. But apparently in the attorney generals under the Trump administration, Sessions and Barr, they were willing to do that. And it's really unprecedented.
Yeah, crossing the lines of power. It's incredible what this shows us. But first of all, it's also surprising that the Department of Justice was also seeking data of family members and a minor. So is there more on that part of the story that you could share with us right now?
Well, we've tried to get answers from the Department of Justice why family members their records were sought and received as well. And the Justice Department has not been forthcoming. So I will very much look to see what the Inspector General determines about that, whether they just were casting their net so broadly that they were indiscriminate about whose records they were seeking, or whether it was something about the nature of the records at Apple. And many people in a family, for example, having the same Apple account or Apple ID. I'm not really sure, and the Justice Department won't say. But one thing that is disturbing is we've also sought to find out, was this targeting all the members of our committee or just Democrats? And at least at this point, it's my suspicion that this was very much a partisan examination and one done to placate the president.
Well, DOJ is now appointing an inspector general to examine this. So what is your reaction to that? And do you think it's enough?
I think it's very positive. And I got a call from the leadership of the department expressing their concern about this and that they were going to be calling for that inspector general investigation. That had been something that I was urging and the speaker was urging them to do. I think it's important. I don't think it's going to be sufficient because the Inspector General is going to look at the unprecedented abuse in terms of seeking congressional records and those of numerous members of the press and media organizations. But there are a lot of abuses at the department that went well beyond that we need to understand this is just part of what was going wrong at the department. The president also sought to have the Attorney General intervene to protect his friends, people like Roger Stone and Mike Flynn, who lied to federal officials, lied to our committee, in the case of Stone, who was convicted of lying to our committee, and also sought not only to use the department to protect the president's friends, but to go after his enemies. And we need to examine that whole course of misconduct and take corrective action.
Yeah, this does. I guess the big concern about this is it does seem like it potentially could be a president who goes far beyond his power. He uses the Justice Department for his own benefit. So I sense that there's a lot more to the story. But in addition to that, how do we keep this from happening again, where another president might go in there and use the Justice Department as his own tool against his adversaries?
Well, that's a really important question. And after Watergate, there were these norms that were established that the White House did not seek to intervene in specific cases involving the Justice Department. It would set broad policy for the Justice Department, but it certainly wouldn't ask for people to be investigated. Well, Donald Trump shattered those norms, and we're going to have to try to rebuild those guardrails so that a future president can't seek to do the same kind of corrupt conduct. But it's very difficult to legislate if you have an executive who is essentially unbound by any norms of decency, recognition of the role of the separation of powers in the different branches of government. And those things are difficult to require, but we're going to have to do our very best.
You know, I'm going to go here, and it's a tough question for you, and you could just tell me that you're not going to go there. But Apple has been under fire in the past for not cooperating with investigations. Yet we hear in this one, they offered up information that the Trump administration and the Justice Department were looking for. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, this is something we're going to pursue with Apple because Apple could have contested the subpoena. In other cases involving corporate clients, for example, some of these large tech companies would challenge them. So they would challenge overbroad subpoenas or subpoenas that they had a question about the legitimacy. They would require, the government to go to court and explain its rationale and why it was lawful. If they're going to do that for favored corporate clients, some of these large telecommunications providers, it shows that they can stand up to an improper request when there is a corporate interest involved. Well, that should be certainly true when subpoenas are directed at the First Amendment and press organizations, when they look like they're political vendettas going after a particular political party in Congress. Those are conversations we intend to have with Apple and other providers.
All right. Congressman Adam Schiff, we really appreciate your time and spending time to explain all this for us. We really have a good